Your Honor, with all due respect, if he can't handle a little stress, maybe he shouldn't have signed up for the military in the first place. That's what I heard today, in my courtroom, Providence Municipal Court. I'm Judge Frank Caprio, and I've been on this bench for decades. I've seen entitled people. I've seen arrogance. But what I witnessed today made my blood run cold. Standing before me was a man in his late 50s, retired Major General Richard Kellerman, silver hair perfectly combed, a uniform covered in medals he wore like armor, expensive watch catching the light every time he moved his wrist, designer shoes so polished I could see my reflection, and across from him sat someone who deserved so much better, someone who gave everything for this country and got nothing but pain in return. If you believe justice should be equal for everyone, no matter how many medals they wear or how much power they think they have, you'll want to see what happens next. The bailiff's voice cut through the morning air. Case 2026 TR 84429, the State versus Sergeant Marcus Webb. Major General Richard Kellerman present as defendant in related civil harassment matter. I looked down at my papers, then up at the General. Good morning, General Kellerman. Please state your full name for the record. He stood straighter. Major General Richard Allen Kellerman, retired, United States Army, 32 years of service. Thank you, General. Please be seated. Then I turned my attention to the other side of the courtroom. That's when I saw him, Sergeant Marcus Webb. 28 years old, but his eyes looked 50. He wore a simple button-down shirt, one sleeve pinned up because his left arm ended at the elbow. His right hand shook slightly as he held a folder, not from nervousness. I'd seen that shake before. I knew what it meant. Sergeant Webb, I said gently, thank you for being here today. He nodded, didn't quite make eye contact. Yes, sir, Your Honor. I read his file before court. Marcus Webb, 2 tours in Afghanistan. Explosive ordnance disposal specialist. That means he was the guy who walked toward the bombs while everyone else ran away. Lost his arm in Kandahar when an IED detonated early. Shrapnel in his back. Traumatic brain injury. PTSD diagnosis in his medical records thick as a phone book. After coming home, he tried to work. Took a job at a grocery store. Started taking online classes. He was trying. Really trying. Until 6 months ago when General Kellerman moved into his apartment building and became his neighbor. That's when everything fell apart. Your Honor, can we get this moving? The General's voice interrupted my thoughts. I have a speaking engagement at noon. I looked at him, really looked at him. General will proceed at the pace justice requires, not the pace your schedule prefers. A few people in the gallery shifted. I heard a quiet murmur. The case was unusual. Sergeant Webb had filed a restraining order request against his former commanding officer. General Kellerman had served in a different unit, but he'd been Webb's supervisor for 6 months during his second deployment. Now they lived in the same building, 4th floor, doors across from each other. According to Webb's complaint, it started small, comments in the hallway, loud music at night. Then it got worse. The General would knock on Webb's door at 2 in the morning, would make loud noises right when Webb was trying to sleep, would stand outside Webb's apartment talking loudly on his phone about how some soldiers just can't handle real pressure. Webb's therapist wrote a letter. The loud noises and sleep disruption were triggering severe PTSD episodes. Webb had been hospitalized twice in 3 months. His grades dropped. He lost his job because he couldn't function on 3 hours of sleep. General Kellerman, I began. Sergeant Webb has submitted a complaint alleging harassment. He says you've deliberately created a hostile living environment. What's your response? The General smiled, actually smiled. Your Honor, I live in my apartment. I have every right to live normally. If the sergeant has problems, that's unfortunate, but it's not my responsibility to tiptoe around someone else's issues. These aren't just issues, General. We're talking about diagnosed PTSD from combat service. He shrugged, literally shrugged. Your Honor, a lot of soldiers claim PTSD these days. It's become an excuse for people who can't handle civilian life. The courtroom went quiet. I felt my jaw tighten. That's a serious statement, General. It's the truth. I served 32 years. I saw combat. I dealt with stress. I didn't need therapy or special treatment. Some people are just tougher than others. I glanced at Sergeant Webb. His head was down. His right hand was shaking harder. Let's look at some evidence, I said. Sergeant Webb has submitted noise complaints filed with building management. 5 complaints in 2 months, all between midnight and 4 in the morning, all describing loud music, banging, and shouting coming from your apartment, General. I held up the documents. Building management confirms these complaints. They also note that no other residents on your floor have made noise complaints about anyone else, just about you. The General waved his hand dismissively. I enjoy music. I have friends over sometimes. It's a free country. At 2 in the morning, on weeknights, I'm retired, Your Honor. Every night is the weekend for me. Some people might have found that charming. I found it cruel. There's more evidence here, I continued. Text messages. Sergeant Webb has submitted screenshots of texts you sent to a group chat with other building residents. I read from my screen. This is from you, General, sent at 11:43 p.m. on March 15th. Quote, if the guy across from me complains about noise one more time, maybe he should invest in ear paths or move back to whatever safe space he crawled out of. End quote. The General didn't even look embarrassed. That's just venting, Your Honor. People say things. You sent another message on April 2nd. Quote, some people milk their military service for sympathy. Real soldiers move on. Were you referring to Sergeant Webb? I didn't mention any names. General, he's the only veteran in your group chat. Everyone knows who you meant. He shifted his weight. First sign of discomfort. Your Honor, I have freedom of speech. You do. But freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences, especially when your speech is targeted harassment. That's when he made his first real mistake. Harassment? Your Honor, I'm a decorated general. I've commanded thousands of men. I've made decisions that saved lives. I think I know the difference between harassment and someone being overly sensitive. Your rank doesn't give you the right to torment your neighbor. Torment? He actually laughed. Your Honor, if I wanted to torment someone, they'd know it. This is barely interaction. I took a slow breath. Stay calm, Frank. Stay professional. Let's move to the second piece of evidence. Sergeant Webb has submitted video footage from the building's hallway cameras. I pulled it up on the courtroom monitor. Everyone could see. The timestamp showed 2:17 a.m. on April 23rd. The video showed General Kellerman standing outside Sergeant Webb's door, knocking, loudly, over and over, 23 times in the span of 3 minutes. Then Webb's door opened, just a crack. You could see half of Webb's face, exhausted, scared. The audio was clear, Webb's voice quiet and shaking. Sir, please. It's 2 in the morning. I have class at 8. The General's response, loud and mocking. Oh, I'm so sorry, Sergeant. Did I interrupt your beauty sleep? Maybe you should talk to your therapist about it. Then the General walked away, laughing. The courtroom was dead silent. I looked at General Kellerman. Would you like to explain that? For the first time, he looked uncomfortable. I may have had a few drinks that night. That's your explanation? Your Honor, it was late. I wasn't thinking clearly. You were thinking clearly enough to stand outside his door and knock 23 times. You were thinking clearly enough to mock his therapy. I didn't mean anything by it. You meant exactly what you said, General. That's when he made his second mistake. His face changed. The polite mask cracked. Your Honor, let me be frank. I spent 3 decades leading men in combat. Real combat. Not the kind where you get a medal for showing up. I've lost soldiers under my command. Good soldiers. Soldiers who didn't complain. Soldiers who did their jobs and didn't expect special treatment. He pointed at Webb without looking at him. That man over there did one job that went wrong, and now he wants the world to accommodate him forever. That's not how life works. One job that went wrong? I repeated slowly. General, he was an EOD specialist. He disabled bombs. He lost his arm saving his unit. And that's unfortunate. It really is. But PTSD has become a crutch, an excuse. When I was in combat, we called it shell shock, and we dealt with it. We didn't shut down. We didn't need safe spaces and therapy animals and special accommodations. My hands were gripping the bench. General Kellerman, you are dangerously close to contempt of court. Why? For telling the truth. Your Honor, with all due respect, you weren't in the military. You don't understand the culture. Some soldiers are warriors. Some soldiers are victims. The sergeant needs to decide which one he wants to be. He is a warrior. He walked toward bombs. Then he should act like it. The gallery was murmuring now, louder. I heard someone say, "This guy is unbelievable." I pulled up the third piece of evidence. General, I have phone records here. In the past 4 months, you've called Sergeant Webb's phone 67 times. Most of these calls were between midnight and 5 a.m. The sergeant never answered. You left voicemails. Should I play them? His face went red. That's not necessary. I think it is. I played 3 voicemails. The courtroom heard everything. The general's voice, slurred with alcohol, mocking Webb's service, mocking his injury, mocking his PTSD, calling him weak, calling him a faker, calling him a disgrace to the uniform. By the 3rd voicemail, I saw people in the gallery with tears in their eyes. I stopped the playback. "General, do you have anything to say?" He stood up straighter, adjusted his uniform, and then he said the words that would go viral. "Your Honor, I stand by everything I said. That man has no business wearing the uniform if he can't handle the aftermath. If loud noises and lack of sleep break him, then he was broken before he ever deployed. Some people are cut out for military life. Some aren't. The military doesn't need more Sergeant Webbs. It needs more people like me." 10 seconds of silence. I couldn't speak. My mind was trying to process what I just heard. Then the gallery erupted, voices shouting. Someone yelled, "Are you kidding me?" Another voice, "He lost his arm for you." The bailiff stood up, calling for order. I slammed my gavel once, hard. "Order, order in this court." Everyone quieted down, but I could feel the anger in the room like heat from a fire. I looked at General Kellerman, really looked at him. This man wore medals for valor, for leadership, for service, but standing in my courtroom, all I saw was cruelty dressed up in a fancy uniform. "General Kellerman," I said quietly, "sit down." He sat. I took a moment, breathed. When I speak from anger, I make mistakes. I needed to speak from principle. "General Kellerman, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to listen, really listen." He said nothing. "You stood here today and told this courtroom that Sergeant Webb is weak, that his PTSD is an excuse, that he's broken. Do you remember saying that?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Do you believe it?" "Yes, I do." I nodded slowly. "Then let me tell you what I see. I see a man, Sergeant Marcus Webb, who volunteered to serve his country. Not because he had to, because he wanted to. He could have done anything with his life. He chose to walk toward danger so others wouldn't have to." I looked directly at Webb. He was crying quietly, trying to hide it. "I see a man who went to Afghanistan twice, who spent his days defusing bombs with his hands. Do you know what that takes, General Kellerman? Do you know the kind of courage required to cut wires on a device designed to kill you?" "I know what courage is, Your Honor." "Do you?" "Because Sergeant Webb showed courage every single day, and on his last day in Afghanistan, a bomb went off early. He lost his arm, he took shrapnel, he suffered a brain injury, but his team survived. Do you know why? Because he put his body between them and the blast." The general said nothing. "That man came home broken, yes, but not because he was weak, because he gave pieces of himself, literally, to protect others. His mind carries scars you can't see. His body carries scars you can, and instead of showing him the respect he earned, you decided to make his life hell." I leaned forward. "Why, General? Why would you do this to someone who served under you?" He didn't answer. "I'll tell you why. Because it made you feel powerful, because you could, because in your mind, your 32 years of service and your medals gave you the right to judge who deserves dignity and who doesn't. Your Honor, I'm not finished. You sent 67 phone calls at 2 in the morning. You knocked on his door 23 times in 3 minutes. You texted groups of people to mock him. You told him to his face that his therapy was a joke. All of this while knowing that he has PTSD, while knowing that sleep deprivation and loud noises trigger his symptoms. You didn't do this by accident, General Kellerman. You did this on purpose. His jaw was clenched, his face red. You said the military needs more people like you and fewer people like him. Let me tell you something. The military, this country, this world, needs more Marcus Webbs. People who sacrifice, people who serve with honor, people who come home broken and still try to rebuild their lives. I paused. Let that sink in. And we need fewer Richard Kellermans, people who use their rank as a weapon, people who mistake cruelty for strength, people who see someone struggling and kick them while they're down. The general's hands were shaking now, not from injury, from rage. You dishonored your uniform today, General, not Sergeant Webb, you. Now came the hardest part, sentencing. Here's what's going to happen. I'm granting Sergeant Webb's restraining order. You are to have no contact with him. None. No calls, no texts, no knocking on doors. If you see him in the hallway, you turn around and walk away. This order is effective for 5 years. The general's mouth opened, closed. Second, you owe Sergeant Webb $47,000. That's compensation for his medical bills from the 2 hospitalizations caused by your harassment, his lost wages from the job he lost, his tuition for the classes he had to drop, and pain and suffering. You'll pay that within 30 days. Your Honor, I'm not finished. Third, your lease allows for eviction based on harassment violations. I'm recommending to your landlord that you be evicted. You have 90 days to find new housing. His face went white. Fourth, community service, 200 hours. But not just any community service, General. You're going to volunteer at the VA hospital, specifically in the PTSD treatment wing. You're going to see what real treatment looks like. You're going to meet veterans who are fighting every day to survive their invisible wounds. You'll serve every Saturday and Sunday for the next 6 months. The VA will supervise you and report back to me. Your Honor, Fifth, you're going to write a handwritten apology to Sergeant Webb. Not an email, not a text, a real letter. In that letter, you're going to acknowledge every single thing you did wrong. You're going to read it out loud in this courtroom at a hearing in 30 days. It will be recorded. It will be public record. The general looked like he might be sick. Sixth, you're going to create a public service announcement, 5 minutes long. You're going to talk about PTSD, about respecting veterans, about the harm caused by harassment. It will be shown at military bases and veteran centers. You'll work with the VA to create it. It must be approved by this court before distribution. I paused. Let him absorb it all. And finally, General Kellerman, if you violate any part of this order, if you so much as look at Sergeant Webb the wrong way, I will hold you in contempt. That means jail time, real jail, not military detention, civilian jail, where your medals and your rank mean absolutely nothing. He was breathing hard. Your Honor, this is excessive. No, General. Excessive was 67 phone calls at 2 in the morning. Excessive was mocking a wounded veteran's therapy. Excessive was your complete lack of basic human decency. Then he snapped. You can't do this to me. Do you know who I am? I have connections. I have friends in the state legislature. I play golf with the mayor. The bailiff stepped forward. I spoke very calmly. Are you threatening me, General? I'm telling you that this won't stand. I'll appeal. I'll make phone calls. You'll regret this. Bailiff, I said quietly, take General Kellerman into custody for contempt of court. The courtroom exploded. The bailiff moved behind the general, pulled his arms back. The click of handcuffs echoed in the sudden silence. What? No, Your Honor. You just threatened a sitting judge. That's contempt. You'll spend the next 72 hours in county jail while you think about respect. They let him out. He was shouting the whole way, something about lawyers and appeals and how this was outrageous. The door closed behind him. I turned to Sergeant Webb. He was staring at me like he couldn't believe what just happened. Sergeant Webb, I'm sorry you had to experience any of this. You served with honor. You deserve to live in peace. He tried to speak, couldn't, just nodded. The restraining order is effective immediately. You have my word that this court will enforce it. Thank you, Your Honor, he whispered. 3 months later, I got an update. General Kellerman completed his community service at the VA. His supervisor sent me a report. The general had been quiet, obedient, and according to one doctor, possibly learning something. He'd moved to a different town, hadn't contacted Webb once. He'd paid the $47,000 on day 29. His public apology had been awkward but genuine. He'd actually cried while reading it, said he'd been wrong, said he'd let his pride blind him to someone else's pain. The PSA he created was being shown at veteran centers across 3 states. Sergeant Webb sent me a letter. He'd re-enrolled in classes, got a new job at a veteran support organization. He was seeing his therapist regularly. The nightmares were less frequent. He wrote, "For the first time in a year, I feel like I can breathe." That letter is framed in my office. I sat alone in my courtroom after everyone left that day. The afternoon light came through the windows at an angle, making everything golden and quiet. I thought about that general, about how easy it is to mistake rank for character, how wearing medals doesn't make you honorable, how the real test of a person isn't what they do when everyone's watching, but what they do when they think no one will stop them. Marcus Webb walked toward bombs for people he'd never met. He lost his arm protecting strangers. He came home and tried to build a life from pieces. That's heroism. Standing in someone's way while they're trying to heal. That's not strength. That's cowardice dressed up in a uniform. In my courtroom, rank doesn't matter. Money doesn't matter. Connections don't matter. What matters is dignity, respect, the basic human decency we owe each other, especially the ones who gave everything for us. That's justice. And I'll fight for it every single day I wear this robe.